So today we're diving deep into the world of Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah.
Using Walter Isaacson's new biography as our guide.
Big book.
Yeah, it's a big one. And the question we're grappling with today is this. Can someone be a genius and, well, maybe a tad impulsive at the same time?
It's a fascinating question, a real head-scratcher.
It is. Okay. All right, let's set the stage. It's July 2018. Things are looking pretty sweet for Elon right now.
Golden, yeah.
Tesla's Model 3 production is hitting an impressive 3,000 units a week. SpaceX has already racked up 56 successful launches. That's more payload sent to space than both the U.S. and China put together.
Combined, yeah. That's a lot of stuff going up.
It is. Seems like everything's coming up roses, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, you'd think so, right? Smooth sailing from here on out.
You'd think. But then we have the Thai cave rescue.
Oh, right.
Remember that? A group of teenagers trapped in a flooded cave.
Everyone was watching.
Yeah, the whole world was glued to the news.
And then Elon steps in.
Yeah, Elon swoops in with his offer to help.
Offers to help, yeah.
Even gets his SpaceX engineers to whip up a special mini submarine.
A mini sub.
For the rescue. Now that sounds like classic Elon, doesn't it? Bold, innovative.
A little bit, attention grabbing.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of that too. Definitely grabbed everyone's attention.
Oh, for sure.
But then things take a bit of a turn.
Yeah, they did.
The rescue teams actually get the boys out safely.
Before the sub even gets there.
Yeah, before Elon's sub could even be deployed.
And then enter Vernon Unsworth.
Right. A British caver
Involved in the rescue.
who was actually involved in the rescue. He comes out.
Publicly criticizes Elon.
Yeah, publicly criticizes the whole submarine thing.
Calls it a PR stunt.
Basically, yeah.
Ouch.
And Elon, being Elon, doesn't just let it slide.
He does not.
Oh, no, he doesn't. He takes to Twitter. And his response...
It's not exactly what you'd call measured.
No, not exactly measured or diplomatic. He accuses Unsworth...
Of being a pedophile.
Yeah, without a shred of evidence to back it up.
Yeah.
And this is where people start to wonder.
Yeah. Is this genius bordering on something else?
Because, this wasn't just some random Twitter spat.
This had real-world consequences.
It did. Big time. Tesla's stock takes a hit.
Drops 3.5%.
Yeah, investors start getting nervous.
About Elon's unpredictable behavior.
Yeah, it raised questions about his judgment.
Is he stable enough to lead these massive companies?
Right. I mean, think about it. Would you feel comfortable investing in a company
where the CEO might?
Where the CEO might go off on a Twitter rant at any moment?
It's a risk.
Not exactly reassuring for investors, is it?
Not at all.
And believe it or not, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, yeah. Buckle up. There's more to come. Just when you think things can't get any crazier, Elon tweets about taking Tesla private.
Oh, yeah.
He even mentions a price, $420 a share.
The infamous 420 tweet. Now, I'm not sure if all our listeners will get the shall we say, hidden meaning there.
Yeah, that number has some interesting connotations.
But even putting that aside, this was a pretty major bombshell.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Not your typical way to announce big business decisions.
No, not at all. And of course, this all caught the eye of the SEC.
Securities and Exchange Commission, yeah.
The folks who regulate the stock market.
They were not happy.
Not happy at all, especially since he hadn't, formally notified the stock market.
No, it was all through Twitter.
So what happens when you get on the wrong side of the SEC?
Well, they filed a lawsuit accusing Elon of misleading investors.
Oh, wow.
And they threatened to ban him from leading Tesla, or any public company for that matter.
Yeah, that's a
pretty big deal.
That is a pretty big deal.
But he could have settled. Paid a fine, $40 million to be exact.
$40 million?
$40 million. And agreed to, basically have someone pre-approve his tweets about the company.
Like a Twitter babysitter, basically.
Exactly. Imagine having to run every tweet by a lawyer before hitting send.
Yeah, that would definitely cramp my style.
It's to say the least.
Yeah.
But initially, Elon refused to settle.
Right.
He even called the SEC the Short Seller Enrichment Commission.
Oh, boy.
Which didn't really help his case.
I can imagine.
It wasn't until Tesla's stock really started to plummet, like 17% down, that he finally agreed to the SEC's terms.
So we've got these outbursts, real-world consequences, both public and financial. A clear pattern of impulsive behavior. It really makes you wonder, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Is this just Elon being Elon, or is there something more to it?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
One of Elon's close friends, billionaire Antonio Gracias, offers some insights. He suggests that while Elon is obviously a genius, he tends to react to stress and criticism more from a primal, instinctual place rather than with his intellect.
So his fight or flight response is stuck on overdrive.
Exactly. Antonio even describes Elon as constantly being in that fight or flight mode.
Wow.
Any perceived attack, any criticism, triggers this primal instinct to either lash out or just completely withdraw.
I think we can all relate to that feeling to some extent, right?
Yeah.
Think about a time when you were stressed or felt cornered and you just reacted without thinking.
Yeah, like your brain just short circuits and you go with your gut.
Exactly.
That's a great point. We all have those moments. But Antonio believes that for Elon, it's much more persistent.
Really?
Maybe stemming from something deeper, childhood trauma.
Trauma. That adds a whole new dimension to this.
It does. Antonio suggests that Elon might be carrying some pretty deep-seated PTSD from his childhood.
Wow.
And this could be a major factor in how he behaves.
It's hard to wrap your head around, you know. On one hand, you have this incredibly successful, driven person revolutionizing industries. On the other hand, there's this potential vulnerability, this suggestion of trauma. Makes you think about the pressure of being Elon Musk.
It really does.
And when you look at his personal life, you see even more evidence of this internal struggle.
His ex-wife, Tallulah Riley, she talked about feeling like she was constantly trying to protect Elon from himself.
Wow.
She even used the term Mad King Syndrome to describe his impulsivity and sometimes erratic behavior.
Mad King Syndrome. That's a powerful image.
Yeah, it is.
If the people closest to him were worried about him, losing control, it makes you think about the weight of all that success and ambition.
Yeah, it's like they say, heavy's the head that wears the crown. But for Elon, it seems like that weight might be even heavier because of,
The trauma.
Yeah, the potential trauma.
It raises the question, can genius and trauma exist together?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's an easy answer. Elon's story definitely challenges how we usually think about success.
It does.
We tend to see these brilliant minds as almost superhuman.
Right.
But maybe that's not always true. Maybe even the most brilliant people among us are still dealing with their own struggles.
It's fascinating that it doesn't seem to hold him back, though.
Right.
His drive, his accomplishments, he's still pushing boundaries,
Yeah.
innovating, taking risks.
Absolutely.
But it does make you wonder about the cost.
Yeah, the cost of that ambition, both for him and for the people around him.
It makes you think, if someone like Elon, with all his resources and success, still has these inner battles, what does that say about all of us?
That's a good point.
It's a reminder that success doesn't erase our vulnerabilities or our past.
It's true. And it also highlights the importance of empathy,
Yeah.
even when it comes to people who seem to have it all. It's easy to judge from the outside,
Oh, yeah.
to focus on the impulsive tweets, the controversial decisions.
Right.
But Elon's story is a reminder that there's often a lot more going on than we see on the surface.
We're all complex.
Yeah. Yeah.
With their own strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely.
And that even those who seem larger than life are still human, with all the messiness that comes with it.
I like that, the messiness of being human.
Yeah, the complexities.
Well said. I think that's a great takeaway from this deep dive into Elon Musk.
Yeah.
His story reminds us that success is rarely a straight line,
It's not.
and that even the most brilliant minds can be dealing with struggles that we might never fully understand.
All right, so today we're diving deep into the world of Elon Musk.
Sounds exciting.
But we're not doing the usual SpaceX and Tesla stuff,
Right.
We're going way back, digging up those early stories.
I like it, the origin story.
Yeah, like what made him tick, especially back when he was 18 to 25.
Those crucial years.
Exactly, those years when you're kind of figuring everything out.
Absolutely.
And to help us break it all down, we have our expert who, let's be honest, can find a pattern in anything.
Well, I try, but honestly, the early stuff with Musk, it's really fascinating. There's so much there that shaped who he became.
Okay, so let's jump in. The sources paint this picture of young Elon as, a bit of an oddball.
Yeah, that comes up a lot.
Curious, but kind of lost in his own world. Didn't always get social cues.
Right, and some call it weirdness, but it might have been key to his drive. He couldn't quite connect with people the usual way.
So he turned inwards.
In a way, yeah. It's like being different pushed him deeper into his own ideas.
Makes sense. You create your own space when you don't fit in. Yeah. And that can lead to some, innovation.
Totally. And then there are his passions, also far from typical.
Oh, yeah. Like devouring encyclopedias.
Exactly. And rockets, of course.
And don't forget the coding. Didn't he make a video game at 13?
Blastar. Learned the language in 3 days.
Crazy, right? And looking back, it's like all these things, the rockets, the knowledge, the programming, they all connect to what he does now.
It's like he was building his own toolkit without even realizing it.
For world domination.
Well, maybe. But definitely for big things. And speaking of big, we can't ignore the superhero influence.
Braving the world, all that.
Right. The source mentions he loved Batman.
Makes sense. No superpowers, but still makes a huge difference.
Exactly. Uses his brain and resources. Kind of like Musk aiming to colonize Mars, right? To, save humanity.
Sounds crazy to some, but maybe that's how you actually solve huge problems, thinking that big.
It's a fascinating mindset, but even superheroes need funding.
Even Batman had that sweet cave.
Exactly. And this takes us to Musk's first real business. Early 90s, internet's just getting going.
Wild West days online.
And he co-founds Zip2. Now, before you think spaceships, it was actually a directory.
Like for businesses?
Yeah. Online yellow pages, basically. Sounds simple, but pre-Google Maps, it was huge.
So even Elon started small.
He did. Solved a real problem, got investment, and it was a stepping stone.
Love that. Early wins matter.
Absolutely. And during this time, we see him change. From quiet kid to, well...
Intense.
Yeah, driven, demanding. Sources say he was relentless, had this vision, and expected everyone to keep up.
So the difficult genius thing might be true.
It sounds like he could be very challenging to work with, yeah. High expectations, maybe not always the best at connecting with people on their level.
It makes you think about leadership, right?
Yeah.
Vision is great, but people matter too.
It's a balance.
Yeah.
And a story for another time, I think. So we've seen like young Elon, the passions, the early win, but things really take off in the late 90s.
.com boom time, right?
Exactly. Wild ideas everywhere. And Musk jumps in with X.com. But this wasn't just another website.
What was it though?
He wanted to revolutionize finance, like all of it.
Hold on, that's a big goal.
Oh, it was huge. X.com was meant to be like everything financial, online, banking, payments, all in one.
Before that was even a thing.
Way before. Totally disruptive.
Oh, did it work? Did he become the financial, Google or something?
It's complicated. They merged with another company, Confinity, who had this thing called PayPal.
Oh, yeah, PayPal. That did pretty well.
Understatement. eBay bought it for over $1 billion.
Wow.
And that's important. Even though X.com didn't quite hit its mark, it led to something massive.
A pretty good consolation prize.
Yeah.
But around this time, it's like Musk's mind is expanding, literally.
Talking about space. Yeah.
It's like the rocket thing was always there, simmering. Yeah. And now, post-PayPal, he's got the means to do something.
Enter SpaceX 2002. Goal: make humans a multiplanetary species.
Ambitious,
Totally. And not just a rich guy's hobby. He believed it was vital for humanity's survival.
Did anyone take him seriously? Starting a private space company? To go to Mars?
Most people thought he was nuts. I mean, going up against the giants of the industry seemed impossible.
But Musk doesn't really do impossible, does he?
Nope. He was all in, believed in his vision, and was willing to risk it all.
But belief only gets you so far, right? You need the know-how, the people.
Absolutely. And this is where his technical side and that ability to build teams shines. SpaceX had tons of early issues.
Like what?
Rockets blowing up, money disappearing fast, constant setbacks.
So it wasn't all smooth sailing?
Not even close. But he never quit. Learned from every failure, pushed himself and everyone around him harder than most could handle.
I guess when everyone says you can't, it makes you want to prove them wrong.
Maybe. And in 2008, boom. Success. The Falcon 1 reaches orbit.
First privately funded one to do so. That's got to be huge.
It was a turning point for SpaceX and for space travel in general. And they kept going. Reusable rockets, NASA contracts, the whole thing.
From crazy Mars guy to making history. But wait, there's more. He's already thinking about
cars.
Tesla. Electric cars weren't new, but...
They weren't cool. Expensive, impractical, more like fancy golf carts.
Yeah, not exactly something you'd brag about driving.
But Musk saw something different. Electric, yes, but also high performance, stylish, something people would want.
Make electric cars cool.
Exactly. Change the whole perception.
Bold move. Some secret battery tech up his sleeve.
He put tons into batteries, but it was the whole package. The Roadster, their first car, was fast, sporty, a head-turner.
So appeal to emotion, not just logic.
Exactly. Tesla became the brand for innovation, performance, and being eco-friendly all at once.
Total image makeover for electric cars. But was it smooth sailing?
Not really. Production delays, money troubles, the whole car industry doubting them.
Same old song and dance, huh?
Pretty much. But again, persistence, refinement, pushing limits. And look at them now.
Top of the world. But with that comes, well,
attention, scrutiny.
And not all of it good.
Right. The leadership style, the online stuff, those crazy timelines he sets, it all gets talked about.
The bigger you get, the more people notice the cracks. Or maybe try to make cracks appear.
True. But you can't argue with the impact. Multiple industries disrupted, tech pushed forward, a whole generation inspired.
And that's what we'll look at next. The legacy, the good, the bad, the lessons learned from a guy who's truly one of a kind.
Okay, so we've seen Elon's rise, all the ups and downs, but where does that leave us now? Like, what's the big picture?
Well, it's more than just the companies at this point. He's kind of become, a symbol
Of what?
Taking risks, thinking huge, actually getting stuff done, that whole change the world vibe, but like actually doing it.
It's like a walking it's possible billboard.
Right. And he's got that vision thing down, Mars, AI, you name it, he's aiming for it. And people are fascinated by that, right? Because most of us just talk. He actually goes for it.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to fail, to be different. That boldness is appealing.
It's worked out pretty well, but
It's
also...
gotten him in hot water sometimes.
Yeah. The leadership, the tweets, the move fast and break things mentality, it all rubs some people the wrong way.
Of course. That much attention, that much ambition, there's going to be friction.
You can't please everyone. But I think it's interesting, right? Like, he's obviously brilliant, but also kind of messy.
Definitely a complex guy. But it's important to see both sides. He's done incredible stuff.
Sustainable energy, space travel, pushing tech forward.
Absolutely. But we can't ignore the other side. How he treats people, some of the business decisions. We got to talk about that too.
It's all part of the story. And honestly, the story's still being written.
Right. He's not slowing down, so who knows what's next. But I think what we can learn from all this is audacity works.
We actually back it up.
Yeah. It's like, dream big, but then work your butt off to make it happen. That's the Musk formula, kind of.
And whether you love him or hate him, that's something anyone can learn from.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, so one thing that kind of jumped out at me right away was this whole superhero thing. Apparently Musk is like a massive X-Men fan. He even named one of his kids Xavier.
Oh, wow. That's right. Yeah. After Professor X, of course.
So is that just like a, fun fact?
I don't think so.
Okay.
The biography actually suggests that it's a clue into his management style.
So like he sees himself as some kind of Professor X figure.
Potentially.
Leading his team of superheroes to change the world.
Yeah, it seems like that's kind of the image he has in his mind.
But is that how it actually works out, though?
Well, that's the thing.
Okay.
According to some former employees, the reality is that it actually creates a very intense work environment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're talking long hours,
Right.
constant pressure to perform very little work-life balance.
I even read this story about an employee asking for time off.
Oh, yeah.
And Musk was basically like, what's a vacation?
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
come on, man.
Really highlights this idea of sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
That runs throughout his life and his career.
Yeah.
The question is, though, how much is too much, right? Not just for him, but like for the people he's working with.
Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of how he works with people,
Yeah.
let's talk about management style.
Sure.
I mean, his management style has been called a lot of things,
Yeah.
and diplomatic is not usually one of them.
Not really. No, there are some accounts
Okay?
from his early days at Zip2 that kind of paint a picture of a very demanding,
Right.
even harsh boss.
Oh, wow.
And like one example that really stood out was publicly criticizing engineers for coding errors.
Ouch. Not good for morale, I imagine.
Definitely not the best way to motivate your team.
Okay, so some people might be thinking, well, he has Asperger's.
Right.
That explains it.
That's kind of the easy explanation.
Yeah.
But the biography pushes back on that.
Oh, really? How so?
It acknowledges that, yes, Musk is on the autism spectrum, but it
Yeah.
also says that that doesn't excuse toxic behavior.
Right, because there are millions of people
Exactly.
with Asperger's, and they
Yeah.
don't all, treat people that way.
Exactly.
So then where does this intensity come from?
Well, the biography kind of points to his childhood, which was,
Oh, boy.
to put it mildly, rough.
Oh,
I think this is where things get really interesting.
lay it on me.
So understanding someone's past can give you a lot of insight
Uh-huh.
into their personality as an adult. And Musk's early years were marked by some pretty intense experiences.
We're not just talking about, the usual childhood scrapes, are we?
No, we're not.
Okay.
So at 5 years old,
Yeah.
he's witnessing domestic violence between his parents.
Oh, wow.
Just imagine the impact that that has on a kid.
Yeah, it's heavy.
It's incredibly difficult to process that kind of trauma at such a young age.
Right.
And then you have the incident with his dog,
Okay.
who was apparently his only real friend at the time.
Yeah.
He's attacked by the dog, and the dog had to be put down,
Oh,
which
wow.
must have been absolutely devastating for him.
Yeah, so not exactly a stable home life.
No, not at all.
And then he gets shipped off to this survivalist school, right?
Yeah, essentially a boot camp in the middle of the woods.
So like Lord of the Flies, but with less supervision.
Pretty much bullying wasn't just tolerated, it was practically encouraged.
As part of this whole, survival of the fittest mentality.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like he's constantly being put in these situations.
Right.
It's like, you got to fight to survive.
Yeah.
And that obviously, shapes your worldview.
Absolutely. I mean, it makes you wonder
Yeah.
how much of his adult personality is rooted in those early experiences.
Like the aggression.
Yeah, the aggression and the need for control.
Like he's always on guard.
Yeah.
Always ready for a fight.
Makes sense.
And we can't forget the context, right?
That's important.
This is South Africa in the 1980s.
Right, a country in the grip of apartheid violence. racial tensions at a boiling point.
So it's not just his personal experiences.
Yeah.
It's the whole social environment telling him that, like, aggression,
Yeah.
brutality are just part of the world.
Absolutely. It's almost like a double whammy, right?
Yeah.
Violence at home, violence in the wider society.
Shaping his worldview.
Yeah, we have to consider that when we analyze his behavior later on.
So he goes from being a victim of this violence
Right.
to, in some ways, becoming the aggressor himself.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a tough cycle to break.
It really is. And the biography highlights this transition. It talks about how he learned to fight at 16, developed this strike first mentality.
And we see that play out today, right?
Oh, for sure.
By his Twitter feuds, he's not afraid to attack anyone.
Anyone who criticizes him.
Yeah.
Or his companies.
And I remember that whole thing with Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh, yeah, the boxing match.
All this tough talk, but nothing ever came of it.
It makes you wonder if deep down there's still a part of that scared kid from his past lurking beneath the surface.
Okay, so we've got this kid goes through some serious trauma, grows up in a violent society, learns to fight back, develops this always be on the offensive mindset.
Yeah.
How does that translate into his business ventures, though?
Well, at Zip2, despite the company's success, his management style ultimately led to him being ousted as CEO.
So he's like too much even for Silicon Valley.
Basically, imagine being told, you're a genius, but no one can work with you.
That's gotta sting.
Even for someone as driven as Elon Musk,
Yeah.
I think it highlights the tension between achieving ambitious goals and maintaining healthy, productive relationships.
That's a tough balance.
It really is.
So does money change things, though? Because
interesting question.
in 1999, Zip2 is sold for $300 million.
Wow.
Musk's share is $22 million.
A lot of money.
Yeah, surely that changes everything, right?
Well, he definitely starts indulging in some of the finer things in life.
Okay, so like what?
Well, $1 million McLaren, for example.
Okay.
So maybe things have changed a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
But here's the key takeaway.
Okay.
Money didn't fundamentally change who Musk is at his core.
What do you mean by that?
Despite his newfound wealth, the biography suggests that his deepest desires remained unchanged.
Like what?
He still wanted to build rockets and go to Mars. And maybe even more importantly, he still hadn't conquered those demons of his past.
The harshness,
Yeah.
the need to dominate.
It was still there.
So even with all that money,
Yeah.
he's still driven by these two powerful forces,
Absolutely.
reaching for the stars and battling his own inner turmoil.
Exactly, and that's what makes him such a compelling figure. It's this fascinating and complex picture of a man who, despite achieving incredible things, seems to be constantly wrestling with himself.
Man, that's deep.
Yeah.
It really makes you think, like, can you ever truly escape your past?
Yeah, even when you achieve what seems impossible.
Right.
It's a really good question, and this internal struggle seems to be a big part of understanding Elon Musk.
Not just the entrepreneur, but the person.
Exactly, and I think it's something we all need to think about.
Especially like our listeners who are, you know, in that 18 to 25 age group.
Yeah, they're full of big dreams and ambitions, and that's great. But, you know, as we're seeing with Musk, success isn't just about the destination, it's also about how you get there.
It's like asking ourselves, what are we willing to sacrifice to achieve our goals?
Yeah.
Is it worth it if we end up pushing everyone away in the process?
Exactly, because even if you build that rocket and go to Mars, you still need people to share the experience with.
That's a good point.
Right.
So where does this leave Elon Musk then?
I mean, can he break free from these patterns, or is this just who he is?
Yeah, it's the $1 million question.
Unfortunately, this biography doesn't give us a clear answer.
Okay.
But it does offer some really valuable insights into the forces that have shaped him, both good and bad.
It also makes you wonder about that whole nature versus nurture debate.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, was he always going to be this way? Or did his experiences mold him into the person he is today?
Probably a combination of both.
As it is for most of us, right?
Right. But recognizing those influences, understanding those patterns, that can be a really powerful first step towards change.
Okay, so what can we learn from all of this?
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
Especially for those who might be, you know, inspired by Musk's accomplishments.
I think the main lesson is that ambition and drive,
Yeah.
those are amazing qualities,
Uh-huh.
but they need to be balanced with empathy and self-awareness.
It's like finding that sweet spot
Exactly.
between pushing yourself and those around you, but also valuing human connection and well-being.
Right. Because nobody wants to work for a brilliant but tyrannical boss,
Who never takes a break.
even if they're building rockets to Mars.
Yeah.
And I think on a personal level, it's a reminder that success
Uh-huh.
shouldn't come at the cost of our mental health
Right.
or our relationships with the people that we care about.
Because money and fame can buy you a lot of things.
They can't buy you happiness or genuine connection.
And as we've seen with Elon Musk, They can't erase the scars of the past.
Okay, so final verdict.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, hero, villain, or somewhere in between. I think it's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
I think he's brilliant, driven, deeply flawed.
Yep.
He's achieved extraordinary things.
Yeah.
But he's also left a trail of, let's say, complications in his wake.
He's kind of a walking contradiction.
Right.
A champion for innovation, but struggles with basic human interaction.
Mm-hmm.
A visionary leader who can also be a ruthless tyrant.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes him such a fascinating subject. He
Yeah.
challenges our traditional ideas about success and leadership.
Okay.
And he forces us to face this uncomfortable truth
Yeah.
that brilliance and empathy don't always go hand in hand.
It's like they say, heavy is the head that wears the crown.
But for Musk, it might be more like heavy is the head that dreams of Mars.
Maybe. So it makes you wonder if it's even possible to achieve those kinds of world-changing goals
Yeah.
without losing a bit of your humanity along the way.
It's a tough one. I mean, history is full of brilliant, driven people
Right.
who were also, let's just say, a handful.
Yeah, true. But I think the real question for each of us is, where do we draw the line?
It is.
How much are we willing to compromise our values, our relationships,
Yeah.
to chase our ambitions?
And maybe even more importantly, how do we create a culture where success doesn't have to come at the expense of our well-being or the well-being of those around us?
That's the real challenge, isn't it?
It is, and it's a conversation we all need to be having.
Especially as we enter this age of, incredible technological advancement.
For sure.
So final thought, what do you want to leave our listeners with today?
I think it's this Elon Musk story is a cautionary tale,
Uh-huh.
but also a source of inspiration.
Okay.
It reminds us that even the most brilliant minds are shaped by their experiences, their traumas, their vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And ultimately, success without empathy is a pretty empty victory.
Well said. And to our listeners out there, especially those of you just starting your own journeys,
Yeah.
remember, it's okay to be ambitious, to dream big, to push the limits. But never forget the importance of human connection, of kindness, of taking care of yourselves and each other.
Absolutely.
Because in the end, those are the things that truly matter.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
We'll catch you next time.
See you later.
Man, that's deep.
Yeah.
It really makes you think, can you ever truly escape your past?
Yeah. Even when you achieve what seems impossible.
Right.
It's a really good question. And this internal struggle seems to be a big part of understanding Elon Musk.
Not just the entrepreneur, but the person.
Exactly. And I think it's something we all need to think about.
Especially our listeners who are, in that 18 to 25 age group.
Yeah, they're full of big dreams and ambitions, and that's great.
Yeah.
But, as we're seeing with Musk, success isn't just about the destination.
Mm-hmm.
It's also about how you get there.
It's like asking ourselves, what are we willing to sacrifice to achieve our goals?
Yeah.
Is it worth it if we end up pushing everyone away in the process?
Exactly. Because even if you build that rocket and go to Mars, you still need people to share the experience with.
That's a good point.
Right.
So where does this leave Elon Musk then?
I mean, can he break free from these patterns, or is this just who he is?
Yeah, it's the million-dollar question.
Unfortunately, this biography doesn't give us a clear answer,
Yeah.
but it does offer some really valuable insights into the forces that have shaped him, both good and bad.
It also makes you wonder about that whole nature versus nurture debate.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Was he always going to be this way, or did his experiences mold him into the person he is today?
Probably a combination of both.
As it is for most of us, right?
Right, but recognizing those influences,
Mm-hmm.
understanding those patterns, that can be a really powerful first step towards change.
Okay, so what can we learn from all of this?
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
Especially for those who might be, inspired by Musk's accomplishments.
I think the main lesson is that ambition and drive.
Yeah.
Those are amazing qualities, but they need to be balanced with empathy and self-awareness.
It's like finding that sweet spot
Exactly.
between pushing yourself and those around you, but also valuing human connection and well-being,
Right, because nobody wants to work for a brilliant but tyrannical boss,
who never takes a break.
even if they're building rockets to Mars.
Yeah.
And I think on a personal level, it's a reminder that success shouldn't come at the cost of our mental health
Right.
or our relationships with the people that we care about.
Because money and fame can buy you a lot of things.
They can't buy you happiness or genuine connection.
And as we've seen with Elon Musk, they can't erase the scars of the past. Okay, so final verdict.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, hero, villain, or somewhere in between?
I think it's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
I think he's brilliant, driven, deeply flawed.
Okay.
He's achieved extraordinary things.
Yeah.
But he's also left a trail of, let's say, complications in his wake.
He's kind of a walking contradiction.
Right.
A champion for innovation, but struggles with basic human interaction. A visionary leader who can also be a ruthless tyrant.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes him such a fascinating subject.
Yeah.
He challenges our traditional ideas about success and leadership.
Okay.
And he forces us to face this uncomfortable truth that brilliance and empathy don't always go hand in hand.
It's like they say heavy is the head that wears the crown.
But for Musk, it might be more like heavy is the head that dreams of Mars.
Maybe so. Makes you wonder if it's even possible to achieve those kinds of world-changing goals.
Yeah.
Without losing a bit of your humanity along the way.
It's a tough one. I mean, history is full of brilliant, driven people who are also, let's just say, a handful.
Yeah, true. But I think the real question for each of us is, where do we draw the line?
It is.
How much are we willing to compromise our values, our relationships, to chase our ambitions?
And maybe even more importantly, how do we create a culture where success doesn't have to come at the expense of our well-being or the well-being of those around us?
That's the real challenge, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is. And it's a conversation we all need to be having.
Especially as we enter this age of, incredible technological advancement.
For sure.
So final thought, what do you want to leave our listeners with today?
I think this Elon Musk story is a cautionary tale, but also a source of inspiration.
Okay.
It reminds us that even the most brilliant minds are shaped by their experiences, their traumas, their vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And ultimately, success without empathy is a pretty empty victory.
Well said.
Yeah.
And to our listeners out there, especially those of you just starting your own journeys.
Yeah.
Remember, it's okay to be ambitious, to dream big, to push the limits.
For sure.
But never forget the importance of human connection, of kindness, of taking care of yourselves and each other.
Absolutely.
Because in the end, those are the things that truly matter.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, so get this. Think dial-up internet, the early dot-com boom, that era.
We're digging into some numbers and stories that even the biggest Elon fans probably haven't heard.
So get ready, because this might change how you see the whole Elon Musk story.
For sure. We're talking about the Elon most people don't even realize existed.
The guy figuring things out, taking risks.
Building the foundation for everything that came after.
First stop, Zip2.
You've probably heard he made some cash from it.
Yeah, but the actual number is insane. 28 years old.
No way.
He sells this company for $307 million.
Let that sink in. $307 million.
At an age when most people are like...
figuring out their first job.
Exactly. It's not just winning the lottery. It's like changing the whole game.
Totally. And it's even crazier when you realize what Zip2 actually was.
What was it?
Basically an online city guide.
Oh.
Think Yelp meets Google Maps.
Right.
But in the late 90s, when most people didn't even have internet access.
Oh, wow. So he was early on that.
Super early, betting on the future, and it paid off big time.
Okay, but here's where things get a little mysterious.
What's that?
Have you ever noticed Elon's obsession with the letter X?
It is everywhere, isn't it?
Seriously. X.com, SpaceX.
Tried to rename Twitter to X.
Even one of his kids has X in their name.
Like next level dedication to a letter.
So is there some deeper meaning, or is it just a quirky preference?
I think it's more than a quirk.
Really?
Think of X as a variable, representing the unknown.
Oh, I see.
The limitless potential.
Okay.
It reflects his ambition to tackle the biggest challenges out there, the things no one else is even trying to solve.
So it's less about the letter itself, more about what it represents.
Right. Pushing boundaries, exploring uncharted territory.
That's classic Elon for sure.
Totally. And this ambition really comes into play with X.com. Yeah, his attempt to revolutionize the entire banking system.
Hold up, he was trying to disrupt banking back when dial-up was still a thing.
1999, that's when it all started.
That's some serious foresight.
He wasn't just trying to build a digital bank, he wanted to change how the whole financial world worked.
Whoa, so he was going head-to-head with those massive financial institutions.
Oh, yeah, and this is where his intensity, that demanding leadership style, really comes in.
I've heard stories.
Clashing with the traditional banking world, pushing his team to meet these crazy deadlines.
Which seemed impossible, right?
Totally impossible, but here's the thing.
But
he actually met those deadlines.
He did?
There are stories about him setting these ridiculously ambitious timelines, and somehow, against all odds, he delivered.
Wow.
Shows you how driven he was.
Yeah, the pressure he put on himself and everyone around him.
Intense.
Okay, so we've got the intense work ethic, the crazy deadlines, but what about the clash with Peter Thiel?
Ah, the PayPal merger.
Yeah, that's got to be a story for the ages.
Oh, it definitely is. The rivalry between Elon and Peter Thiel during the PayPal days was legendary.
I need details. What exactly went down?
You've probably heard about the McLaren crash, right?
Vaguely.
In the middle of this intense rivalry,
Okay.
Elon takes Peter for a spin in his McLaren F1,
Oh, wow.
driving like a madman. Some say it was a power move, you know?
A way to intimidate Teal.
Exactly, to show him he wasn't afraid of anything.
Hold on. So he purposely crashed this expensive car to make a point.
It was a bold move for sure, and things got even more interesting when the car actually did crash.
Oh, no.
Teal was shaken up, but thankfully unhurt.
Wow.
But here's the thing, Elon was reportedly relieved it happened.
Relieved.
Because it proved his point.
That's intense.
It definitely shows you a different side of his competitive nature.
Yeah, but they did eventually merge their companies, right?
They did.
So the rivalry was fierce, but...
But they both recognized the power of joining forces.
Right.
But even after the merger, things weren't smooth sailing. Elon's management style continued to clash with the rest of the PayPal team.
So even with a successful merger, there was still friction.
Oh, yeah. And get this.
What?
He got ousted as CEO twice.
Twice.
Shows you how much tension there was between his vision and his way of leading.
Wow. Ousted twice.
But hey, at least he got the last laugh.
What do you mean?
eBay bought PayPal
Right.
$1.5 billion.
Oh.
And Elon's share of that deal,
How much?
$250 million.
$250 million.
That's when things really started taking off for him.
Yeah, it's like leveling up in a video game.
With that kind of cash, he could finally start thinking about even bigger things.
Like revolutionizing the space industry.
Exactly.
Or building electric cars.
You got it.
So from internet startups to shaking up the banking world, we're starting to see the early signs of the Elon Musk we know today.
Absolutely. Welcome back to our deep dive into the early days of Elon Musk.
Last time we uncovered some pretty surprising facts about his ventures with Zip2 and PayPal.
Seeing how, even back then, he was already aiming to disrupt industries most people thought were untouchable.
Yeah, making serious waves and showing that intense drive that's become his signature.
But now we're stepping into a whole new arena.
The era of SpaceX and Tesla.
These ventures weren't just about shaking things up, they were about tackling challenges that most people thought were impossible.
Yeah, who tries to take on NASA and the entire automotive industry at the same time.
It's like he was looking for the biggest, most daunting challenges he could find.
And that's what's so fascinating about him. He isn't afraid of those impossible challenges.
He sees them as opportunities to innovate and push the boundaries of what we think is possible.
Exactly.
And with SpaceX, it wasn't just about competition with NASA.
What do you mean?
He genuinely believed that the space agency had lost its ambition.
Really?
That drive to push further into space, especially when it came to Mars.
This is more about reigniting that spirit of exploration.
Yeah, that desire to reach beyond what we thought was possible.
Okay, like humanity needs to become a multiplanetary species. And he was going to be the one to make it happen.
Right. He saw a gap, a need for someone to take bold action, and he stepped up.
It's crazy how far SpaceX has come since then,
Landing rockets.
sending astronauts to the International Space Station.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing.
I bet there were setbacks along the way.
Oh, absolutely. Those early days were filled with challenges.
Like what?
Explosions, near bankruptcies. There's a story about him pouring almost all of his PayPal fortune into SpaceX.
Risking everything on this dream,
He's not afraid to bet big on his convictions.
even when everyone else thinks he's crazy.
And that relentless pursuit of his vision, even in the face of failure, is a key part of his success story.
So he basically took that fail fast, learn faster mentality to a whole new level.
Exactly. He saw those explosions not as failures, but as data points.
Opportunities to refine his approach and keep pushing forward.
This brings us to another crucial point.
What's that?
SpaceX wasn't just about space exploration for Elon. It was about making space travel more affordable.
Right. He's always talking about making humanity a multiplanetary species.
And that's not going to happen if only billionaires can afford to go to space.
Yeah, but how do you make space travel affordable when it costs millions, if not billions, to launch a single rocket?
That's where his engineering genius comes in.
How so?
He focused on developing reusable rockets, something that was unheard of at the time.
Like landing a rocket upright so you can use it again.
It was revolutionary.
Like something out of a sci-fi movie.
By creating reusable rockets, he drastically reduced the cost of space travel.
Opening up all sorts of new possibilities.
Scientific research, satellite deployment, and eventually putting humans on Mars.
So he's busy revolutionizing space travel, but then he decides to take on the automotive world with Tesla.
Talk about multitasking.
This was arguably an even bigger challenge.
The auto industry was dominated by giants with decades of experience and massive factories.
And let's not forget, electric cars weren't exactly cool back then.
The opposite of what people wanted in a car.
So how did he break through and make Tesla the global phenomenon it is today?
It was a combination of factors.
Like what?
First, he focused on making electric cars that weren't just eco-friendly, but also high performance.
Okay.
And stylish.
He wanted to change the perception of electric vehicles.
To make them desirable, not just a compromise for the environmentally conscious.
He basically made electric cars cool.
He focused on performance, design, and technology.
And suddenly, electric wasn't just about saving the planet, it was about being cutting edge.
You got it. Tesla cars were sleek, fast, and packed with innovative features.
Right.
He targeted a market that was ready for something different.
Something that represented the future.
But it wasn't just about the cars themselves.
It was about building a brand.
That stood for something more than just transportation.
Okay, so Tesla became synonymous with sustainability, innovation, a forward-thinking approach to technology.
It was about being part of a movement, not just buying a car. He tapped into that growing awareness of climate change and the desire for cleaner, more sustainable solutions.
It was like he was selling a vision of the future.
And that vision resonated with a new generation of consumers.
Who were looking for companies that aligned with their values.
So it's not just about being a brilliant engineer or a savvy businessman.
It's also about understanding cultural shifts.
And anticipating what the future holds.
That's one of the key takeaways from Elon's early career.
He's not just reacting to trends. He's actively shading them, creating the future he wants to see.
Absolutely.
This is mind-blowing stuff.
From online city guides to private space companies and electric car revolutions.
It's like watching a masterclass in innovation and disruption unfold.
But I have a feeling there's more to this story.
There has to be another side to all this success, right?
You're absolutely right. In part 3, we'll delve into the darker side of Elon's ambition, exploring the challenges and controversies that have come with his meteoric rise.
Welcome back. It's been quite a journey so far. From dial-up internet to space travel and electric cars.
We've seen Elon's incredible drive, his willingness to take on huge challenges, his ability to completely disrupt entire industries.
It's a pretty inspiring story.
It is, but like any story of ambition and success, there's always another side, a darker side we need to talk about.
We've touched on his intense work ethic, his tendency to push people to their limits, the clashes he's had with colleagues and rivals.
But let's dig a little deeper into the impact of this relentless pursuit of his vision.
Okay, one thing that stands out is his relationship with failure.
How so?
He's had his fair share of setbacks, from exploding rockets to production delays.
Right.
And his reaction to those failures has often been, well, extreme.
Like he sees failure as a personal insult.
Something to be crushed and overcome no matter the cost.
And that kind of mindset can create a really high-pressure environment.
Especially for the people working with him.
There are stories about employees working insane hours, facing constant pressure to deliver, feeling the weight of Elon's expectations.
So yeah, it's not all sunshine and roses working for a visionary like Elon Musk.
It seems like there's a human cost to this level of ambition.
Absolutely, and it's not just limited to his employees.
What do you mean?
His personal relationships have also been affected by his workaholic tendencies.
And his all-consuming focus on his companies.
Right. We've heard about his multiple divorces.
His struggles to connect with his kids.
The toll that his relentless work schedule has taken on his personal life.
It's a reminder that even the most successful people struggle to find balance.
Between their work and their personal lives.
Makes you wonder about the sustainability of that kind of intensity.
In the long run, can you keep up that level of drive and focus without burning out?
Or sacrificing important parts of your life.
It's a question that Elon himself seems to be grappling with.
Has he talked about it?
He's talked openly about feeling lonely, the pressure he's under, the things he's had to give up along the way.
It's a humanizing glimpse into the man behind the myth.
Reminding us that even the most ambitious and driven people are still human.
So, what can we learn from Elon Musk's early career? The triumphs, the challenges.
It's a complex story with no easy answers.
For sure.
On one hand, you have his ambition, his willingness to take risks, his relentless pursuit of innovation.
Which have led to some incredible achievements.
He's pushed the boundaries of technology, challenged conventional thinking, and inspired countless people
to dream bigger.
But on the other hand, his story also serves as a cautionary tale.
About the potential downsides of unbridled ambition.
The human cost of his drive.
The strain on his relationships.
The toll it's taken on his own well-being.
It's a reminder that success often comes at a price.
It's all about finding that balance.
Right, chasing your dreams while also building a healthy and fulfilling life.
And it's something each of us has to figure out for ourselves.
Yeah.
What are we willing to sacrifice to reach our goals?
And at what point does the pursuit of success become self-defeating?
Those are some big questions.
They're definitely worth considering.
As we reflect on this extraordinary and sometimes troubling journey of Elon Musk,
his story is a testament to human ingenuity.
And the potential for innovation to change the world.
But it also reminds us that even the most brilliant minds are still human.
With all the complexities and imperfections?
It's a story that will continue to unfold, and I have a feeling it's only going to get more interesting from here. And one of the first things that jumped out at me was this idea of the idiot index.
The idiot index.
Yeah, have you heard of that?
I have.
Okay.
It's fascinating. It's all about breaking things down to their most basic components, understanding the true cost, and then looking for ways to improve instead of just accepting things at face value.
Right.
Musk challenges every assumption.
The document gives this crazy example of a young Elon Musk who, instead of buying a new car, decided to rebuild a BMW engine from individual parts.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was determined to understand exactly how it worked, how much each part cost, and where there was room for improvement. This wasn't just tinkering, it was a deep dive into the fundamentals.
And he didn't stop with car engines.
No.
This approach, this idiot index, became a core principle at SpaceX.
It did.
He applied it to rocket components, ruthlessly questioning why things cost what they did and driving his team to find simpler, cheaper solutions.
And it worked.
It did.
By breaking down the complex systems of rocketry into their fundamental elements, SpaceX was able to achieve significant cost savings and innovation.
Wow.
In a world where rockets traditionally cost hundreds of millions of dollars, SpaceX managed to build the Falcon 1 for a fraction of the price.
So this idiot index wasn't just a quirky habit.
Right.
It was a strategy for disruption.
It was.
But the document also reveals another side of Musk, his intense need for control.
Musk's desire for control isn't just about micromanaging. It stems from a deep-seated belief in his own vision. He's not afraid to go against the grain, even if it means defying conventional wisdom. Take SpaceX, for example. He built the entire company without outside investors, giving him complete autonomy to pursue his goals.
So he basically said, I'm going to do this my way, and I don't need anyone else's money or opinions.
Pretty much.
That's bold.
It is.
But it seems like that need for control can also be a double-edged sword, right?
Well, absolutely. While it can be a powerful driver of success, it can also lead to conflicts and challenges.
Right.
The document hints at clashes with experienced managers who found it difficult to work with Musk's uncompromising style.
So it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
This drive to control can lead to incredible breakthroughs, but it can also create friction.
Definitely.
The document also highlights Musk's embrace of trial and error,
Yes.
even at the risk of spectacular failure.
He's a firm believer in the idea that you learn more from failure than from success. Okay. He doesn't shy away from risk. He embraces it.
There's this incredible anecdote about a lightning strike hitting a Falcon 1 test stand.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of panicking or delaying the project,
Yeah.
Musk and his team literally rolled up their sleeves
Wow.
and fixed the tanks themselves.
This wasn't just about saving time or money.
Right.
It was a statement about his hands-on approach and his unwavering belief in pushing forward, even in the face of setbacks.
Yeah.
He fosters a culture of resilience where failure is seen as a stepping stone to success.
That's a pretty inspiring mindset.
It is.
But the document also explores what it calls the shadow side of success. It seems this relentless drive for progress isn't always pretty.
That's right. The document touches on accusations of scapegoating and a demanding leadership style that put immense pressure on employees, especially in the wake of those early Falcon 1 failures.
So maybe this intense hands-on approach can also create a really tough work environment.
It can.
We're starting to see a more complex picture of Musk emerge. Brilliant, driven, but maybe not the easiest guy to work for.
Exactly. And that complexity is really evident in the story of Tesla, which surprisingly didn't originate with Musk.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I always thought Tesla was his baby from the start.
While he's definitely the face of Tesla today, the initial vision actually came from J.B. Straubel and Martin Eberhard.
Okay.
They saw the potential of lithium-ion batteries to power cars and founded the company. Musk came on board as an investor, but quickly took a more active role.
Okay, so how did he transform Tesla from this nerdy engineer's dream into the global phenomenon it is today?
He brought his design sense, his obsession with aesthetics, and his relentless drive for perfection.
Okay.
He knew that electric cars had to be more than just functional. They had to be desirable.
The document mentions how he insisted on redesigning the Tesla Roadster's door for easier access.
Yeah.
Even though it was a costly change.
Right.
And he wasn't afraid to spend extra to get the headlights just right.
He understands the power of perception and branding. He transformed the image of electric cars from something clunky and awkward to something sleek and aspirational. He basically made electric cars cool.
And this focus on design, coupled with his engineering expertise, really propelled Tesla into the mainstream.
Absolutely. But even as Tesla gained momentum, Musk wasn't afraid to shake things up.
Oh, no.
He realized their complex global supply chain was inefficient and expensive.
So what did he do? Hire a team of consultants to streamline things.
He took a page from the SpaceX playbook and decided to bring battery production in-house, opting for vertical integration over outsourcing.
This guy really loves to control the whole process, doesn't he?
He does.
But was this a good move? Bringing battery production in-house seems like a massive undertaking.
It was a bold move for sure, and the document doesn't shy away from the challenges involved, but it also highlights the potential benefits: greater control over costs, quality, and innovation.
Okay, so we're seeing the brilliance, the drive, and the control.
Yeah.
But where does the jerk part come in? The document introduces us to Michael Marks, an experienced manager brought in to help guide Tesla.
Marks had a long track record of success, having managed companies worth billions.
Okay.
But he quickly clashed with Musk's personality.
And he didn't hold back in his assessment of Musk calling him a genius, but also a jerk.
He didn't.
That's pretty blunt.
It is. There's even this quote from Marks. Elon was actually a genius like Steve Jobs, but the price of his great accomplishments in saving humanity is to tolerate dealing with an actual jerk like him. Maybe it's worth a try, but I don't want to be the one trying. You can save humanity away from me.
Wow. So we've got Musk, the innovator, the disruptor, the demanding leader, and maybe even the jerk.
It paints a pretty complex picture. Is it possible to separate the genius from the personality? And at what cost? That's the question we're left with.
That's a lot to unpack. We'll be back in a minute to dive even deeper into the world of Elon Musk. Stay with us, brain dozers.
It definitely makes you think, doesn't it, about the trade-offs and the compromises, the human cost of innovation. And that's what makes this deep dive into Elon Musk so compelling.
Yeah, we're not just getting the glossy PR version. This document gives us a glimpse behind the curtain, the good, the bad, and the complicated. But going back to his methods, we talked about the idiot index and his need for control. But there's also this recurring theme of simplifying complex systems, almost like a hacker mentality applied to engineering.
Absolutely. He's obsessed with finding elegant solutions, even if it means challenging industry norms. The document highlights this great example of the Falcon 1 engine valve.
Right. The thing was costing SpaceX a fortune, like $120,000 per valve. That's insane.
Yeah, it was a perfect example of how traditional aerospace companies get bogged down in bureaucracy and inflated costs. They were using a complex, custom-built valve that was ridiculously expensive.
But Musk wasn't having it. He basically said there has to be a simpler, cheaper way. And he was right.
His engineers eventually found a similar valve being used in, of all things, car washes, and it cost a fraction of the price, just $5,000.
That's a 96% cost reduction, just by thinking outside the box and challenging assumptions.
It demonstrates a key principle of Musk's approach. Ingenuity and resourcefulness can often trump tradition and complexity. And this wasn't just a one-off thing. The document states that SpaceX was able to build 70% of its tools in-house using similar cost-saving strategies.
So it's not just about being cheap, it's about being smart and efficient. But it also seems connected to his need for control, right? If you build everything yourself, you don't have to rely on anyone else.
Exactly. It's about vertical integration, controlling as much of the process as possible. And this approach has had a huge impact not just on SpaceX and Tesla, but on other industries as well. He's shown that it's possible to challenge the status quo to disrupt entire industries by thinking differently.
So we've got a pretty good grasp of Musk's methods, break it down, simplify it, build it yourself. But what about the bigger picture? What are his ultimate goals? Is it just about building cool gadgets and making money?
The document suggests that his ambitions go far beyond that. He sees himself as a problem solver, someone who's using technology to address the existential challenges facing humanity.
Right, like colonizing Mars with SpaceX, accelerating sustainable energy with Tesla, and even merging human consciousness with AI through Neuralink. These are some pretty ambitious goals.
And what's interesting is that these ventures, while seemingly disparate, are all interconnected. They're driven by a deep-seated belief that technology can be a powerful force for good, for ensuring the long-term survival and prosperity of humanity.
It's almost like he's trying to play the role of a modern-day savior, using technology to solve the world's problems.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily go that far, but it's clear he's not content with just building companies. He wants to leave a lasting impact on the world.
But as we've seen, his methods and personality can be pretty controversial. He's been accused of being ruthless, demanding, and even reckless at times.
The document doesn't shy away from those criticisms. It acknowledges that his drive for progress can come at a cost both to himself and to those around him.
Like the story of those early Falcon 1 launch failures. While he ultimately took responsibility, the document suggests he initially deflected blame onto his employees, creating a culture of fear and anxiety.
It raises some important questions about leadership, about the balance between ambition and empathy. Is it possible to achieve such ambitious goals without pushing people to their limits? And what are the ethical implications of that kind of leadership style?
Yeah, it's a bit of a moral dilemma. On the one hand, he's pushing the boundaries of innovation, driving humanity forward. But on the other hand, there's this potential for harm, for exploitation. It's a complicated legacy.
And that's where I think this document is so valuable. It doesn't give us easy answers. It forces us to confront the complexities of Musk's personality and his impact on the world.
It's not a celebration of his genius or a condemnation of his flaws. It's an honest attempt to grapple with the nuances of a truly remarkable and controversial figure.
Yeah, it's a reminder that progress isn't always a straight line.
Right.
There are bumps along the way, ethical dilemmas and human costs to consider.
Definitely.
But I think this conversation is particularly relevant for our listeners, for anyone who's trying to make sense of the world
Yeah.
that Musk is helping to create. Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of innovation,
Right.
the promise of a future filled with self-driving cars and interplanetary travel. But we need to be aware of the potential downsides, the unintended consequences.
Yeah, we can't just blindly accept the vision of any one person, no matter how brilliant or charismatic they may be.
Right.
We have to think critically, ask tough questions, and hold these powerful figures accountable.
It's about being informed citizens, not passive consumers.
Right.
And that's why I think these deep dives are so important.
Yeah.
You give us the tools and the knowledge to engage in these conversations, to make informed decisions about the future we want to create.
To uncover some lesser-known facts, particularly focusing on the make-or-break year of 2008.
Well, 2008, yeah, that was a year that could have easily spelled the end for everything he was building.
For sure.
Both SpaceX and Tesla were on the verge of collapse.
Oh, yeah.
And his personal finances were in a similarly precarious position.
It's wild to think about just how close it all came crashing down.
Yeah.
Most people know about Musk's successes, but I bet they don't realize just how much adversity he had to overcome in those early days.
Absolutely. SpaceX had just experienced its third consecutive failed rocket launch.
Oh, wow.
And this wasn't just any rocket.
Right.
It was carrying satellites for both NASA and the U.S. Air Force.
Oh.
Imagine the pressure on a young company like SpaceX to deliver.
Yeah.
Especially with such high-stakes clients.
That's a lot, riding on a single launch.
Yeah.
To make matters worse, Tesla was bleeding money.
Yeah.
Right on the brink of bankruptcy.
Right.
How did he even function under that kind of pressure?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned functioning because his personal life was mirroring the turmoil of his companies.
Oh, really?
His ex-wife described him experiencing panic attacks, waking up in a cold sweat from the stress.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah.
But what I find fascinating is that his deepest fear, according to those close to him, wasn't actually failure itself.
Right. It was the fear of proving his father, right?
His father. What do you mean?
When Elon was leaving South Africa at just 18 to attend university in Canada, his father told him, and I quote, "Listen here, Elon, you'll be back in a few months. You won't succeed."
Ouch, that's got to sting, especially coming from your own father.
It did. And that statement, according to Musk himself, haunted him for years.
Wow.
It adds a whole new dimension to his relentless drive.
It's like he was on a mission to prove, not just to the world, but maybe even more so to his father,
Yeah.
that he could achieve something truly extraordinary.
And it's not like his family wasn't familiar with ambitious, even risky pursuits.
Right.
His maternal grandfather, Joshua Haldeman, was known for leading expeditions into the Kalahari Desert
Oh, wow.
in search of a lost city rumored to be filled with treasure.
Hold on. A lost city. Like Indiana Jones style.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And his own father, Elon Musk, was involved in emerald mining ventures in Zambia.
So this adventurous, risk-taking spirit was kind of ingrained in him from a young age.
It seems that way.
Interesting.
And perhaps that's why, even when faced with those crushing setbacks in 2008, he never gave up.
So picture this. SpaceX failing publicly, Tesla teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, and Elon grappling with the weight of his father's words.
Yeah.
It's enough to make anyone crumble.
It is.
But then the global financial crisis hits.
Right.
And things get even worse, right?
Right. And here's a detail that most people don't know.
Okay.
The bank where Elon and his brother Kimball held their money actually went bankrupt during the crisis.
You've got to be kidding.
Yeah.
It's like the universe was conspiring against him.
It certainly seemed that way.
Wow.
But here's where things take a really interesting turn.
Okay.
Help came from a completely unexpected source. The PayPal Mafia.
The PayPal Mafia, who are these guys?
This was a group of former PayPal colleagues, some of whom had actually ousted Musk from the company years earlier.
Oh, wow.
There was definitely some bad blood there.
So why would they help him? Especially when things look so bleak.
Despite their past conflicts, they recognized Musk's brilliance and the potential in both SpaceX and Tesla.
Oh.
They decided to invest $20 million in SpaceX,
Wow.
giving Musk the resources for a fourth and possibly final launch attempt.
Wait, final. So if this launch failed, that was it for SpaceX.
It was do or die time. The pressure must have been unimaginable.
I can't even imagine.
But even with the funding, the odds were stacked against them. Remember, this was their 4th attempt to launch the Falcon 1.
Right.
And each failure had chipped away at their credibility.
So we've got SpaceX facing a make or break, launch a ticking clock, and the weight of proving everyone wrong.
Yeah.
What happened next? Did they manage to pull it off?
Well, that's a story for part 2 of our deep dive. Welcome back to our deep dive into Elon Musk's wild ride through 2008.
It was a wild one.
We left off with SpaceX getting that crucial investment from the PayPal mafia,
Right.
just in time for a 4th launch attempt of the Falcon 1.
Oh,
But even with the cash injection, it wasn't exactly smooth sailing, was it?
I can imagine.
It sounds like they were still facing some pretty major hurdles, even with the extra funding.
So what kind of challenges did they encounter
Well,
getting that launch off the ground?
picture this. During a refueling stop in Hawaii,
Okay.
they discovered that pressure changes were starting to crush the rocket's fuel tank.
Oh, no.
Like a soda can? Talk about a nightmare scenario.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
So what did they do? Were they just stranded in Hawaii with a crumpled rocket?
Well, here's where you really see the dedication and resourcefulness of Musk's team shine through.
Okay.
A group of about 20 engineers rallied to repair the damaged rocket right there on the spot.
Wow. Only 20 engineers to fix a complex piece of machinery like that.
That's right. They were working against the clock under immense pressure, and they had to improvise.
Yeah.
Some sources even mention them using pocket knives to patch things up.
That's incredible.
It is.
It speaks volumes about their commitment and ingenuity.
Oh, yeah.
They were willing to do whatever it took to get that rocket ready for launch.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine that even with those repairs, the atmosphere leading up to that 4th attempt
Oh, yeah.
must have been thick with tension.
Absolutely. The weight of expectation was immense. This wasn't just about the success of SpaceX.
Right.
It was about proving that Musk's vision for private space exploration was viable.
That's huge.
Imagine being one of those engineers or technicians knowing that the future of the company, maybe even the future of space travel itself, hinged on your work.
That's a lot of pressure.
That's a lot of pressure.
It must have felt like a David versus Goliath situation.
Yeah,
Here they were, this small startup going up against established giants like Boeing and NASA.
exactly. And keep in mind that SpaceX at this time only had around 500 employees.
Wow, that's
A tiny fraction of the workforce of those established aerospace companies.
Yeah.
But even with those limited resources, they had managed to achieve something truly remarkable, designing and building a rocket from scratch.
That's amazing.
It is.
Okay, so they patched up the rocket, made it to the launch site, and everyone's holding their breath.
Yeah.
Did that 4th launch succeed?
It did. In September 2008,
Right.
the Falcon 1 rocket soared into space, marking a triumphant moment for SpaceX.
All right.
And a turning point in Musk's career.
I can only imagine the eruption of cheers and relief when that rocket cleared the launch pad.
I know. It must have been amazing.
They had defied the odds and pulled off a seemingly impossible feat. What kind of impact did this success have on SpaceX?
Wow.
Did it finally give them the recognition and support they needed to really take off?
It absolutely did. That single successful launch completely changed the game for SpaceX.
Okay.
Almost overnight, they went from a struggling startup on the verge of bankruptcy to a major player in the space industry.
Wow.
In fact, this success directly led to a $1.6 billion contract with NASA for 12 missions.
Wow, $1.6 billion. That's a game changer.
Yeah.
It sounds like that one launch single-handedly saved the company.
It did. But the ripple effects extended even further than just SpaceX. Remember, Tesla was also in dire straits at this time.
Oh, mate. Yeah.
But the success of the Falcon 1 launch had a halo effect.
Okay.
It showed investors that Musk could deliver on his promises, even in the face of enormous challenges.
So it wasn't just about the money,
Right.
but also about restoring faith in Musk's vision and leadership.
Exactly. And that renewed faith led to a much-needed investment in Tesla.
Okay.
The German automotive giant Daimler, impressed by SpaceX's success,
Wow.
decided to invest $50 million in Tesla, giving them a crucial lifeline just when they needed it most.
So this one successful launch not only saved SpaceX, but also played a pivotal role in rescuing Tesla.
That's right.
That's incredible. It's a classic comeback story. Facing seemingly insurmountable odds, refusing to give up, and ultimately achieving a groundbreaking victory.
It really is.
But I'm curious about the lasting impact of this experience on Musk himself.
Yeah.
How did this wild ride through 2008 shape his approach to leadership and innovation in the years that followed?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll delve into in part 3 of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Elon Musk's roller coaster year of 2008.
Definitely a roller coaster.
We've seen him go from the brink of total collapse to achieving these incredible victories with both SpaceX and Tesla.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that this period was a defining moment in his journey.
Absolutely. It's a testament to his resilience, his ingenuity, and his unwavering belief in his vision.
Sure.
But as we wrap up, I think it's important to consider how those experiences shaped his leadership style and his approach to challenges in the years that followed.
It's like that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right.
But I wonder, did those near-death experiences make him a more cautious leader? Or did they actually embolden him to take even bigger risks?
Well, that's the fascinating thing. He seems to have doubled down on his audacious goals. If anything, those struggles seem to have reinforced his conviction that pushing boundaries and defying expectations is the only way to achieve truly groundbreaking progress.
So instead of shying away from risk, he embraced it even more.
Exactly. Think about his commitment to developing reusable rockets.
Oh, yeah.
A concept that many in the aerospace industry dismissed as impractical at the time.
Right.
But Musk saw it as the key to making space travel more affordable and accessible. And that kind of bold, unconventional thinking has become a hallmark of his companies.
Yeah, it's almost like he internalized that scrappy, resourceful mindset that his team demonstrated back in Hawaii when they were patching up the Falcon 1 with pocket knives.
Right. That willingness to find solutions, no matter how unconventional they might seem, has become a key part of the culture at both SpaceX and Tesla.
For sure.
And it's clearly influenced his leadership style.
In what way?
He sets incredibly ambitious goals and pushes his teams to work incredibly hard to achieve them.
Yeah, I can see how that could be both inspiring and demanding. He's known for his intense work ethic.
Yeah.
And he expects the same level of dedication from those around him.
That's true. His leadership style definitely isn't for everyone.
Right.
Some might argue that his relentless pursuit of those ambitious goals creates a high-pressure environment that can lead to burnout.
It's a valid point. There's a fine line between pushing for excellence and pushing people too far. But I think it's undeniable that his unique approach has yielded some remarkable results.
Absolutely. He's disrupted entire industries, pushed the boundaries of technology, and inspired a generation of innovators and entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that can be traced back to those early challenges he faced in 2008.
Yeah, for sure.
They forged him into the leader he is today.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into this pivotal year for Elon Musk, it's clear that 2008 was a crucible that tested his limits.
Definitely.
And shaped his trajectory in profound ways. It's a reminder that setbacks, even seemingly insurmountable ones, can be catalysts for incredible growth and innovation.
And it leaves us with a lot to think about. How did those early experiences continue to influence his successes and his failures in the years that followed? It's a story that continues to unfold, and one that we'll all be watching closely.
You know, like how this guy thinks that the critical events in his life, the mind-blowing numbers, like really crazy risks that this guy takes. So is he a visionary who's pushing humanity forward, or just a reckless risk taker?
Well, you've probably heard about, SpaceX launching rockets. But did you know that back in 2008, after 3 failed launches, they were like this close to bankruptcy?
Oh, wow. 3 failures in a row.
Yeah.
That's got to be more than just a financial hit, right?
Absolutely. This was like a make or break moment, and it revealed a lot about Musk. I mean, some people called him arrogant, unable to accept failure. Other people saw it as pure grit, like pushing his team beyond what anyone thought was possible.
Oh.
And, this is where this concept of the PayPal mafia comes in.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
The early PayPal crew that backed Musk. They knew he was brilliant, but they also knew that he could crash and burn spectacularly.
So they're basically betting on a genius with a high chance of self-destruction.
Yeah, you could say that high risk, high reward, right?
That's a little scary.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that some people believe that Musk's drive isn't, ambition or altruism, but something a little darker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like he's running from his demons, and all these achievements are just a side effect.
Whoa. Okay, so not exactly like a feel-good story then.
Not necessarily, but the other view is that it's not talent, but sheer terror of failing that fuels him.
It's a lot of pressure. Either way, the guy has an intensity that most people just don't have.
Yeah.
And then things get even wilder when SpaceX teams up with NASA. I mean, talk about a culture clash.
Yeah, you've got this massive government agency with all their procedures, and then you've got this scrappy startup trying to do things their own way.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
Pretty much everything. I mean, SpaceX was all about cost cutting and resourcefulness.
Right. Which was basically the opposite of how NASA did things.
Yeah.
And there's the story about a latch for the space station. NASA's approved latch was a whopping $1,500.
Wow.
SpaceX engineers figured out they could make one based on a bathroom door latch for a mere $30.
$30 versus $1,500.
Yeah.
It worked, though.
It did, and then there's the cooling system for the Falcon 9's cargo hold. NASA wanted to spend $3 million on it.
Oh my God.
SpaceX grabbed some air conditioners for $6,000 and modified the pumps.
Air conditioners? Are you serious?
I'm totally serious. They were like MacGyvering spaceships.
That's incredible.
It is. Some people called it genius. Other people thought it was reckless corner cutting.
Yeah.
And all this is happening, during Obama's presidency when the U.S. was shifting towards private companies for space exploration.
That was a big gamble.
It was, and there were some people who were not happy about it.
Politically, yeah, there must have been a lot of pushback,
Yeah.
especially from those states that relied on NASA contracts.
Absolutely. Even Neil Armstrong himself had concerns about NASA's future.
Wow.
So SpaceX had to prove they could deliver.
Right.
They faced some crazy challenges. Like, remember that time that torrential rain messed up the Falcon 9 antennas right before launch?
Oh, yeah, what'd they do? Call for a rain delay?
Nope. While NASA was panicking, SpaceX engineers found a solution: hairdryers.
You're kidding. Hair dryers for a multi-million-dollar rocket.
It's true, it just shows their unconventional approach.
Yeah.
They weren't afraid to think outside the box, even if it meant fixing a spaceship with stuff you'd find at a drugstore.
I mean, that sounds a bit chaotic, but did they actually succeed?
You bet. Despite all the drama and unusual methods, in December 2010, SpaceX made history. They launched the Falcon 9, sent an unmanned capsule into orbit, and brought it back safely.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. And I'm guessing their budget was way smaller than those massive government programs.
Oh yeah, at that point, only the US, Russia, and China had achieved that all with gigantic budgets. SpaceX did it for a fraction of the cost,
Wow.
proving that efficiency and innovation could beat the old ways.
They were like the ultimate underdog story.
You could say that.
But their risk-taking almost backfired sometimes, right? What about that space Heimlich maneuver I read about?
Ah, yes. That was in 2013. A valve on a Falcon 9 capsule got stuck closed in space. A total disaster waiting to happen.
Oh, no. So did they call NASA for a rescue mission?
Nope. SpaceX engineers did what they did best. They came up with a risky, unconventional solution.
Oh.
They wrote code to suddenly increase and then release pressure on the valve, hoping to force it open.
Wait, they used software to fix a mechanical problem in space?
It was a huge gamble, but it worked. They saved the mission.
Wow.
Even Musk admitted it was a wild move.
So they were constantly pushing the limits, and sometimes it paid off spectacularly.
Right, and their success wasn't just about technical skills, it was about their culture. Driven by Musk's vision of colonizing Mars.
Hold on, colonizing Mars, they're talking about sending people to live on another planet. Was that really their focus even back then?
Yeah. Even when they were struggling to get rockets into orbit, the idea of Mars was central to who they were. There are stories of engineers discussing Martian street designs and traffic lights,
Wow.
even before figuring out basic stuff like water.
So they were planning Martian cities before they even knew how to get drinking water there.
Exactly. That's Musk's style. He creates a vision so big that everything else seems small in comparison.
It's mind-blowing that while SpaceX was aiming for Mars, his other company, Tesla, was trying to save Earth with sustainable energy. It's like he was playing both sides of the future.
Yeah, at this point, he wasn't just a businessman. He was shaping humanity's future. And with that kind of power comes a whole lot of responsibility.
And maybe some existential worries too, like what if AI gets too smart?
That was a huge concern for Musk. He famously clashed with Larry Page, a Google co-founder, over this very issue.
Really?
Yeah, Musk thought Page wasn't taking the dangers of advanced AI seriously enough.
So what did he do? Write a strongly worded email.
He did what any billionaire worried about AI would do. He co-founded OpenAI in 2015, a company dedicated to developing what he called ethical AI.
Ethical AI. What does that even mean in real life?
Musk believed the best way to protect humanity was to make AI open source accessible to everyone.
Interesting.
He felt this would stop any one group from controlling this incredibly powerful technology.
So that's a pretty radical approach. So how did OpenAI turn out?
It's now a leading AI company responsible for things like ChatGPT and DLA.
Oh, wow.
Musk's early involvement and vision were huge, although he later left due to disagreements about their direction.
Sounds like a pattern with him starting companies and then moving on, but there's a darker side to this ambition too, right? I'm thinking about Tesla's self-driving tech.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Tesla's approach using cameras instead of sensors was controversial from the beginning, and Musk's aggressive marketing, hyping up the system's capabilities, probably led some drivers to think it was more advanced than it really was.
And that had some tragic consequences, didn't it?
Unfortunately, yes. In 2016, a Tesla driver in Florida died while using autopilot. He was watching a movie, fully trusting the system to drive.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. How did Musk react to that?
His response was complicated. Instead of focusing on the individual tragedy, he emphasized how Tesla's technology could reduce overall car fatalities.
So he was prioritizing the potential benefits for everyone over the very real loss of life in that specific accident.
It seems that way. There's a strange contradiction in his thinking. He's super worried about humanity as a whole, climate change, AI, even extinction.
Yeah.
But he seems less concerned about individual people.
It's like he's willing to sacrifice individuals for the sake of progress.
That's a key part of who he is, and it raises some serious ethical questions.
This deep dive is showing us way more than just Musk's businesses.
Yeah.
We're seeing a guy driven by incredible ideas,
Yeah.
but also potentially dangerous flaws.
He's a complex figure.
He is.
And that leads us back to the big question. Visionary or villain, or maybe a bit of both.
We've got a lot more ground to cover. Let's
Yeah.
keep digging.
This whole humanity over humans thing, it pops up a lot in Musk's life.
Yeah, it's a weird contradiction. It's like he's almost looking at people through a microscope,
Yeah.
not really connecting on a personal level.
Like, he's obsessed with our survival as a species, with, like, solving these big problems.
Yeah.
But individual struggles don't really register on his radar.
It's strange because you'd think someone so into innovation and technology
Yeah.
would also be interested in how those things affect people on like a personal level.
Yeah, that's the thing about Musk. He's full of these contradictions.
Right.
On the one hand, he's creating things that could, like, totally change the world.
Right.
But on the other hand, he seems willing to cut corners and push people to the limit, ignore the consequences for individuals as long as it serves his grand vision.
And then there's his personal life.
Yeah.
Which has been just as wild as his career.
It has.
Multiple marriages and divorces, a ton of kids.
Yeah.
And he's not exactly known for being a warm and fuzzy guy.
Right. And it's interesting to see how this humanity over humans thing plays out in his relationships. There are stories about him being emotionally distant, super demanding, even dismissive of the people closest to him.
So the same drive that makes him a successful entrepreneur might also be why his personal life is so messy.
It's possible. It's almost like he's wired differently,
Right.
operating on a level where normal rules don't apply.
It makes you wonder about the cost of this kind of ambition. Like,
Okay.
what sacrifices are being made, not just by Musk, but by everyone around him?
That's a good question to think about, because even if Musk achieves all of his goals,
Yeah.
Mars colonies revolutionizing transportation, sustainable energy everywhere,
Right.
what's it all worth if he leaves a trail of broken relationships and unhappy people in his wake?
That's a pretty sobering thought. It's almost like we're watching a Greek tragedy play out in real time.
Yeah.
A brilliant hero with a fatal flaw that can destroy everything he's built.
That's a great analogy. It shows that even the smartest people aren't immune to human problems. Musk might be a visionary, but he's also just a guy with all the flaws that come with being human.
So how do we make sense of all this? How do we balance the amazing things Musk is doing
Right.
with the fact that he seems indifferent to individuals?
That's the challenge, isn't it? That we have to acknowledge both the good and the bad, the achievements and the consequences.
Well-
We can't just put him on a pedestal or write him off completely.
Yeah.
We need to look at his impact on the world in a nuanced and critical way.
And that means asking some hard questions.
Absolutely.
What are the ethical implications of his technologies? How far is too far when it comes to his ambition?
Right.
And ultimately, what will his legacy be?
Those are questions we all need to think about, because whether we like it or not, Musk is shaping the future.
He is.
And it's up to us to decide what kind of future we want.
You've definitely given us a lot to think about, but I have a feeling this is just the beginning when it comes to Elon Musk.
Oh, absolutely. We've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
There's a ton more to learn about Musk, his companies, and his impact on everything.
And that's what's so cool about a deep dives like this.
Yeah.
It's not about getting all the answers.
Yeah.
It's about sparking curiosity and getting people to explore more on their own.
Exactly. We've given you some insights, something to chew on, but now it's your turn to go deeper, form your own opinions,
Right.
and be part of the conversation about Musk and the future he's creating.
So what will you discover on your own? Deep dive into the world of Elon Musk. You know, it's crazy to think that someone like Musk, who's so focused on the future, had such a rough start with SpaceX.
Yeah.
I mean, those early failures could have easily ended everything.
Yeah, it's true. Those early years were a real roller coaster. But what's interesting?
What's that?
Is that those setbacks might have actually been crucial to their later success.
How bad?
Well, think about it. Those failures forced them to innovate, to find ways to do things differently, and to develop a culture that embraced risk and experimentation. I mean, they couldn't afford to follow the traditional playbook, so they had to write their own.
So in a way, those early struggles kind of forced them to become more creative and resourceful, which ultimately gave them an edge.
Exactly. It's like that old saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Right.
They had to invent because they had no other choice. And that spirit of innovation is still a big part of SpaceX's DNA today.
It makes you wonder if they would have been as successful if everything had gone smoothly from the start.
Yeah.
Maybe a little adversity is actually good for you.
It's definitely possible sometimes facing challenges and setbacks can force you to rethink your assumptions,
Yeah.
to find new solutions, and to develop a resilience that wouldn't have been there otherwise.
And that resilience is something we see in Musk himself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's faced criticism, lawsuits, even public ridicule, but he just keeps going.
He's definitely got a thick skin, and maybe that's another key to his success. He's not afraid to fail. He's not afraid to be different, and he's not afraid to go against the grain.
It's like he's playing a different game than everyone else, while others are trying to avoid failure. He's embracing it as part of the process.
Yeah, and that's a powerful mindset to have. It allows you to take bigger risks, to learn from your mistakes, and to keep pushing the boundaries even when everyone else is telling you to stop.
I mean, it's inspiring in a way, but also kind of scary. Like, where do you draw the line? How much risk is too much?
That's a question we all have to grapple with. There's no easy answer.
Right.
But I think it's important to remember that progress always involves risk. If we're not willing to take any chances, we'll never achieve anything truly great.
So maybe the key is not to avoid risk altogether, but to manage it intelligently, to weigh the potential benefits against the potential downside. Musk wasn't exactly born with a silver spoon, was he?
Not quite. His childhood in South Africa was, well, pretty turbulent. His relationship with his father, Errol, was particularly strange. Yeah, I mean, Musk's brother, Kimball, has actually described their father as abusive, someone who really instilled fear and uncertainty in their lives.
Wow, that's heavy stuff. And, it makes you wonder because that pattern of difficult relationships seems to have followed Musk into adulthood, too, especially with some of his romantic partners.
Yeah, it's a pattern we see sometimes. Early experiences, especially those that are kind of traumatic or chaotic, can have a big impact on how someone navigates relationships later in life.
So maybe he's subconsciously drawn to these tumultuous dynamics because it feels familiar in a way.
It's possible. It could be like a subconscious attempt to kind of rewrite the past, maybe try to get a different outcome this time around. But of course, that rarely works out the way people hope.
It makes you think about that story of Musk and his first wife, Justine, losing their first child, Nevada, to SIDs. That's got to be just devastating, losing a child so young.
Absolutely, and Justine has talked about how Musk essentially shut down emotionally after that tragedy. It's like he just compartmentalized that grief, suppressed those really difficult emotions to just keep pushing forward.
Which is kind of wild when you consider how ambitious this guy is. Fast forward to 2018, fresh off a very public breakup with Amber Heard, and Musk sets this insane goal for Tesla to produce 5,000 Model 3 cars per week. Was that even realistic back then?
Most industry experts thought it was impossible. It was a huge gamble, one that had Wall Street buzzing. Investors started short-selling Tesla stock, basically betting against his success.
Wait, short selling? Explain that like I'm 18 again.
Okay, so imagine betting that Tesla's stock price would go down. If it did, you'd make money. A lot of people thought Musk would fail, so they were betting against him. And get this, Bill Gates was one of them.
Bill Gates? No way, seriously, that's pretty savage.
Oh yeah, the stakes were super high. Musk made a deal with Tesla's board. No salary if he failed, billions if he succeeded. And to hit that target, he pushed everyone to the absolute limit. I mean, we're talking sleeping at the factory, working around the clock, that kind of pressure.
There were even reports of senior managers quitting because the pressure was just too intense. But Musk was laser focused on that 5,000 car target. So, did he pull it off?
On July 1st, 2018, Tesla hit that 5,000 Model 3 target. They defied the odds, proved everyone wrong, and Musk made billions. It was a pivotal moment for Tesla, for the electric car industry, and for his reputation.
Talk about a comeback story. But of course, with Musk, there's always a twist.
Right. Shortly after that incredible achievement, he appears on Joe Rogan's podcast and smokes weed on air.
You've got to be kidding.
Nope. Didn't go over well with investors or NASA. Remember, they were relying on SpaceX at the time.
Yeah, what was he thinking? It's like this constant roller coaster ride with the guy. One minute he's achieving the impossible, the next he's doing something completely reckless.
Yeah, like, is it self-sabotage? Or maybe he just thrives on chaos. Who knows?
But even after that controversy, he just kept pushing boundaries, coming up with these wild ideas. Like, remember his vision for a single-piece cast for the Model 3 underbody?
Oh yeah, that was a game changer.
Yeah, but sounds super technical. Can you break that down for us non-engineers?
Sure. Imagine building a car chassis like a giant Lego piece instead of multiple parts welded together. That's basically what Musk did. Yeah. It simplified manufacturing, made the car stronger, and even cut costs. Pretty ingenious, actually.
So he's not just a showman. He's got the brains to back it up.
Oh, absolutely. He's a brilliant engineer, a master innovator, and yeah, maybe a little bit crazy too.
And let's not forget about SpaceX. They completely revolutionized space travel, especially after the space shuttle program ended in 2011.
You're right. The Falcon 9 rocket has become like the workhorse of space travel, super reliable. And in 2020, it had this historic moment by successfully transporting astronauts to the International Space Station.
Which meant that America didn't have to rely on Russia anymore. That was a big win. And then there's this whole reusable rocket thing that just boggles my mind. Can you explain how that even works? Because I can't even...
It's pretty incredible. Before SpaceX, rockets were single use, launch once, burn up in the atmosphere, gone. SpaceX figured out how to land those rockets back on Earth, like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Like a vertical landing.
Exactly. And this reusable technology drastically reduces the cost of space travel. I mean, that makes it more sustainable and more accessible for everyone.
Which brings us to things like Inspiration 4, that all-civilian space mission back in 2021. Space tourism is becoming a reality, and that's straight out of a Muskian dream.
It really is. He took something that seemed impossible and turned it into a real possibility.
It can't all be smooth sailing, though, right? There have to be some downsides to this level of ambition and disruption.
You're absolutely right. There have been reports about the intense work conditions at Tesla factories. There are allegations of unfair labor practices and concerns about the environmental impact of some of his projects. It's important to look at the whole picture, not just the shiny, exciting parts.
So it's not just cool tech and those inspiring missions. It's about understanding the full impact, the good and the bad.
Exactly. Musk's story is a complex one, filled with contradictions and challenges. It shows us that progress isn't always straightforward and often involves really tough choices.
We've already uncovered so much more than what you see in the headlines. I can't wait to dig even deeper.
You and me both. There's a lot more to uncover. And then you have Starlink, probably one of the most ambitious and most impactful projects that Musk has ever taken on.
Starlink, right? That's that whole satellite internet thing.
Exactly. So by the first quarter of 2022, SpaceX had already launched more rockets than any other company or government in the entire world. And a lot of those launches were specifically for Starlink.
Okay.
The goal is to create this massive network of satellites in low Earth orbit to provide high-speed internet access to pretty much everyone, even the most remote corners of the planet.
So you're beaming the internet down from space.
Yeah.
It's like straight out of Star Trek or something. How many people were actually using Starlink by early 2022?
Over 500,000 subscribers in 40 countries, and those numbers have just continued to skyrocket since then. And what's crazy is that it's not just about connecting people in like remote areas, it's also proving to be super crucial in crisis situations too.
Oh yeah, like in Ukraine. I remember reading about how Starlink became a lifeline after the Russian invasion. I mean, even when traditional internet infrastructure was disrupted, people can still communicate, they could access information, all thanks to those satellites.
Right, exactly. And it's become a vital tool in disaster relief as well. Like, imagine a hurricane wipes out cell towers and internet cables. Starlink can step in and provide that immediate connectivity so rescue workers can coordinate, people can reach their loved ones. It's amazing.
It's a real game changer for sure. And it's not just individuals who are benefiting from this technology either. I heard that even airlines are starting to get on board with Starlink.
You're right. Major airlines, like United, are actually partnering with SpaceX to offer in-flight Wi-Fi powered by Starlink. Think about it. You're flying over the ocean thousands of miles from land, but you've got reliable, high-speed internet because of this network of satellites orbiting Earth. It's insane.
My mind is officially blown. It's like he's constantly thinking 10 steps ahead, coming up with these scenarios that sound like they're straight out of science fiction, and then he actually makes them happen.
It goes back to that drive, that ambition to tackle huge problems. Electric vehicles, sustainable energy, space travel, global internet access, nothing seems to be off limits for him. He's not afraid to push those boundaries, even if it means ruffling some feathers along the way.
Okay, let's be real though. The guy is also a magnet for controversy. Some people see him as a visionary genius, and then others think he's just an eccentric billionaire who's completely out of touch.
Yeah, he's definitely a polarizing figure. His achievements are undeniable. I mean, there's no question about that. But his methods, his persona, they've definitely sparked a lot of debate, and for good reason.
Remember that time he called that British cave diver a pedo guy on Twitter? Or when he talked about nuking Mars to terraform it? Sometimes it feels like he's almost deliberately trying to stir up trouble.
Yeah, those are some prime examples of his tendency to make, well, let's just say impulsive and offensive statements. It makes you wonder about his judgment, right? Like, you have this guy with so much power and influence, but he can be so unpredictable.
So it's kind of like this constant roller coaster, right? Just when you think he's pulled off something incredible, he does something that makes you question everything.
Yeah, he creates this sense of instability and unpredictability, which can be unsettling for investors, employees, even just the public.
But maybe that's part of what makes him so successful. I mean, he's constantly disrupting these industries, challenging the status quo.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone else is just scrambling to keep up.
Oh, he's a master disruptor, that's for sure. You can love him, you can hate him, but you can't ignore the impact he's having on the world.
So we've talked about this turbulent childhood, the crazy business moves, the groundbreaking innovations, the controversies, the wild ideas. I mean, what's the big takeaway here? What does it all mean?
I think the most important thing to understand about Elon Musk is that he's kind of a walking contradiction. Brilliant innovator, ruthless businessman, showman, provocateur. It's all wrapped up into this incredibly complex package. He pushes the boundaries of technology and our imaginations, but he can also be incredibly reckless and sometimes even insensitive and destructive.
His story sounds like a real cautionary tale about ambition, the complexities of ambition, and the human cost of progress.
Yeah, exactly. His life really shows us that progress isn't always neat and tidy. A lot of times it comes with unintended consequences, it brings up ethical dilemmas, it forces us to make tough choices.
So what are we supposed to make of a guy like Elon Musk? Is he a hero? Is he a villain? A little bit of both.
There's no easy answer to that question. He's just a human being, flawed and brilliant in equal measure. It's up to each of us to decide how we view his legacy, what lessons we choose to take from his story.
There's no doubt that he's made a huge impact on the world, for better or for worse.
Definitely. And ultimately, it's up to each of us to decide what we make of it all. I mean, we've given you the facts, the insights, the connections. Now it's your turn to dig a little deeper, form your own opinions, and consider the broader implications of his influence on the world.
We've covered a ton of ground already, but there's still so much to unpack. I'm really curious about those patterns in his personal life. The difficult relationships and how they might connect back to his childhood and maybe even his drive to succeed.
That's a really interesting point, and it's definitely worth exploring further. Let's dive back into the psychology behind his choices and see what we can find.
Okay, so back to those relationship patterns we were talking about with Musk. It's not just random, right? There's a reason he seems to be drawn to those kind of tumultuous relationships.
Yeah, I mean, it's highly likely that those patterns are tied to his childhood experiences, The impact of a difficult upbringing, especially when there's abuse or manipulation involved, it can have a lasting effect on how someone builds relationships later in life.
So it's like, even though those early relationships were painful, he might be subconsciously seeking out similar dynamics because it feels familiar, right?
Exactly. It's like a subconscious attempt to rewrite the past, to try and get a different outcome this time. But of course, it doesn't usually work out that way.
Which makes that story about his emotional shutdown after losing his first son, Nevada, even more heartbreaking. I mean, he lost his child, and instead of processing that grief, he just kind of buried it.
And that pattern of suppressing his emotions, it seems to come up again and again throughout his life, almost like he learned that being vulnerable was a weakness, something he couldn't afford, especially with his relentless pursuit of success.
It's like he's pushing himself harder and harder, reaching for these impossible goals, maybe as a way to distract himself from the pain he hasn't really dealt with.
It really is a fascinating psychological puzzle, isn't it? Like, what truly drives someone like Elon Musk? Is it just pure ambition, a desire to solve all the world's problems? Or could it be something deeper, something more personal? Maybe a need to prove himself worthy of love and recognition, to fill a void that's been there since childhood.
Man, that's pretty deep. We've covered so much ground today, from that difficult childhood to those high-stakes gambles, the groundbreaking innovations, the controversies. Sometimes it's hard to wrap your head around it all.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. We've seen how his past has shaped who he is today, how his ambition has taken him to incredible heights, but also led him to make some questionable choices along the way.
So where do we go from here? What's the final verdict on Elon Musk?
Honestly, I don't think there is a simple answer. He's such a complex person. He defies easy categorization. He's a visionary, an entrepreneur, a disruptor, and a flawed human being just like the rest of us. He pushes those boundaries, challenges norms, and forces us to think about what's truly possible.
He's definitely left his mark on the world, that's for sure. For better or for worse.
Absolutely.
Can we just talk about the insane scale of all of Musk's ventures? Tesla alone is valued at over $1 trillion.
It's remarkable.
That's more than the entire GDP of most countries. Like, it's mind-boggling to think about.
Yeah, it really puts things into perspective.
Totally.
This isn't just building companies anymore. It's building, like, empires.
Right.
And what I find so fascinating is how he uses this vast wealth and influence, right?
Yeah.
To tackle these huge, almost existential problems. Climate change with Tesla. The future of humanity as a multiplanetary species with SpaceX.
Yeah. And then there's Neuralink. This is the one that's working on connecting brains to computers. I mean, it sounds like straight out of science fiction.
It does.
But they're actually making progress.
In 2023, they helped a paralyzed man control a tablet with his thoughts.
That's incredible.
Imagine the possibilities. If that technology becomes widely available,
Yeah.
it could totally revolutionize how we interact with the world around us.
It's incredible, but it also makes you think about, like, the potential downsides,
Of course.
Isaacson mentions this feeling that Musk is almost a hostage to his own ambition. Like, even with all of this success, he's still driven by this intense fear of failure.
It's actually a common thread I've observed among these like high achievers.
Oh, really?
They set these incredibly ambitious goals and then put immense pressure on themselves to achieve them.
Yeah.
Isaacson describes Musk as brilliant, but
Yeah.
also haunted by this constant sense of urgency.
Yeah. Which brings us to the Twitter takeover. Back in 2022, he bought Twitter for a whopping $44 billion. What was the plan there?
Oh man, it was a chaotic time with all those layoffs and changes to verification, advertisers pulling out left and right. Some people saw it as just like a pure power play, a way for Musk to like control the narrative, right?
He claimed it was all about protecting free speech,
Yeah.
but then banned accounts that he personally disagreed with.
Yeah, exactly. Raises a lot of questions about like whose speech is truly free in Musk's vision of Twitter.
Yeah.
Plus the platform was hemorrhaging money under his leadership.
So was it a massive fail then?
Well, not necessarily. Remember, Twitter holds an immense amount of data.
Oh, right.
Billions of tweets, opinions, trends. That's like pure gold for someone who is developing artificial intelligence.
That's a good point. Which brings us to that whole AI connection. This is where things get really interesting, for me at least. Musk co-founded OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, but then became critical of their direction.
Right.
And it's his company.
He felt that AI was developing too quickly, becoming too powerful.
Yeah, too powerful, too fast.
That's when he launched his own AI company.
Oh, wow.
XAI.
Okay, so his own company, XAI. On top of that, you've got Tesla collecting billions of video clips from its self-driving cars,
Yeah, all that data.
capturing real-world scenarios, human behavior, like all kinds of nuanced information that most AI systems don't have access to.
And when you combine that with that treasure trove of data from Twitter,
Yeah.
it's like he's building a digital map of human experience, using it to train his AI to understand us better than we understand ourselves, right?
It's fascinating and kind of unsettling at the same time. What are the implications of that kind of power? I mean,
It's a double-edged sword, for sure.
yeah,
On the one hand, you have the potential to solve some of humanity's biggest problems. Climate change, disease, maybe even aging.
wow. But on the other hand,
On the other hand, there's that potential for misuse.
right.
I mean, Musk himself has expressed concerns about AI becoming too powerful too quickly.
It's true. This is why this conversation is so important. We need to be thinking critically about the ethics of AI, the potential risks and benefits, how to ensure that it's used for good. Couldn't agree more. It's a lot to process, but Isaacson's biography gives us this glimpse into Musk's psyche, his fears, his anxieties. It makes you wonder, like, is he trying to save humanity from itself? Or is he just trying to outrun his own demons?
It's a complex picture.
Yeah.
You have the brilliance, the drive, the relentless pursuit of innovation, but also the darkness, the impulsivity, almost a sense of self-destruction. It's this constant tension between those two forces.
And it plays out in his management style as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Isaacson talks about how demanding Musk is, how he pushes everyone around him to their absolute limits.
It's a high-pressure environment, for sure. Some people thrive on that, but others burn out. It raises questions about the cost of innovation, both for the individuals involved and for society as a whole.
It's a conversation we need to be having as technology continues to advance at this incredible pace.
Yeah.
Like, we're entering an era where the lines between human and machine are blurring. We need to be prepared for the ethical and social implications of that.
100%. It really does.
It raises questions about, like, the human cost of innovation, right?
Totally.
How far should we push ourselves and others, in pursuit of progress?
It's a tough question.
It is. And it gets even more complex when you consider, like, Musk's actions with Twitter.
Right.
We know he said it was about free speech, but then there's this whole, like, Twitter files saga.
Oh, yes, the Twitter files. Musk allowed this group of, like, independent journalists
Right.
to comb through Twitter's internal documents, which revealed some questionable practices,
Right.
Like working with the FBI to moderate certain content.
Yeah, it was a whole thing. And he kind of used that to position himself as this, like,
Yeah.
champion of transparency and free speech, right? Fighting against what he called censorship.
But then he turns around and suspends accounts that he personally disagrees with, like that Elon Jet account that was tracking his private jet.
Yeah, the irony is that some of the same journalists he brought in ended up criticizing him for hypocrisy. They pointed out that his actions didn't always align with his stated principles.
It made a lot of people wonder, was this really about free speech? Or was there, like, a different agenda at play?
Maybe the data.
It's possible.
Isaacson suggests that the real prize might have been the data.
Oh, interesting.
Think about it. hundreds of billions of tweets, like a massive data set of human conversations, opinions, emotions. That's incredibly valuable for training AI systems.
It's a perspective that's not often considered,
Right.
but it makes a lot of sense.
Totally.
Especially when you tie it in with his other ventures, like Tesla and XAI.
Exactly. You've got Tesla collecting all this data from those self-driving cars, capturing those real-world scenarios,
See them behave.
all kinds of nuanced information that most AI systems just don't have access to.
Combine that with the treasure trove of data from Twitter.
Right. And it's like he's building this digital map of human experience, using it to train his AI, to understand us better than we understand ourselves.
It's fascinating, but also kind of unsettling. Like, what are the implications of that kind of power?
Well, it's a double-edged sword, right?
For sure.
On one hand, you have the potential to solve like some of humanity's biggest problems, things like
Awesome.
climate change, disease, maybe even aging.
But on the other hand,
There's always the potential for misuse.
right. I mean, Musk himself has expressed those concerns about AI becoming too powerful too quickly.
And that's why this conversation is so important.
Absolutely.
We need to be thinking critically about like the ethics of AI.
Yeah.
About those potential risks and benefits, and how to make sure that this incredibly powerful technology is used for good.
It's a lot to process. But Isaacson's biography does give us this glimpse into Musk's psyche, like all his fears, his anxieties. Makes you wonder if he's trying to save humanity from itself, or if he's just trying to outrun his own demons.
It's a very complex picture.
Yeah. You see the brilliance, the drive, that relentless pursuit of innovation, but also the darkness, the impulsivity, almost a sense of self-destruction. It's this constant tension between those two forces.
And it plays out in his management style, too.
Absolutely.
Isaacson talks about how demanding Musk is, how he pushes everyone around him to their absolute limits.
It's a high-pressure environment.
Yeah.
Some people thrive on that, you know?
Yeah, I can see that.
But others burn out. It raises questions about the cost of innovation.
For sure.
Both for the individuals involved and for society as a whole.
It's a conversation we need to be having as technology just continues to advance at this crazy pace. It feels like we're entering an era where the lines between human and machine are blurring. We need to be prepared for the ethical and social implications of that, you know?
Absolutely. It's essential. It's crucial.
It's almost like he's a walking case study in the dangers of unchecked ambition. A cautionary tale for anyone like striving for greatness.
Which brings us to a fascinating point. Think about it. You have someone like Musk pushing the boundaries of technology, amassing this incredible wealth and influence, but seemingly driven by these deep-seated anxieties.
Yeah. Almost like he's trying to solve problems
Yeah.
that haven't even happened yet. Like some kind of tech-savvy Nostradamus.
Makes you wonder what the end game is, right?
Yeah.
Is it truly about saving humanity? Or is there something more personal driving him?
Yeah, is he trying to like secure his own legacy?
Maybe.
Or even transcend human limitations altogether? I mean, the guy talks about colonizing Mars. Like it's a weekend trip, not exactly normal.
Even for a billionaire.
Right.
And that's what makes him so captivating.
Yeah.
He forces us to confront these big questions, the ones we usually avoid. What is our place in the universe? What does it even mean to be human? In this age of rapidly advancing technology, are we on the cusp of a technological utopia? Or a dystopian nightmare?
Okay, that got a little dark, but you're right. Musk is like a mirror, right? Reflecting our own hopes and fears about the future. It's so interesting to compare him to someone like our next deep dive subject, Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, are we really going there? From tech mogul to reality TV star turned president? That's quite a leap.
On the surface, they seem like polar opposites, right?
Totally.
But if you look a little bit closer, there are some striking similarities.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Both are masters of self-promotion. Both have this uncanny ability to, like, captivate the public's attention. And both are incredibly polarizing figures.
Yeah, you either love them or hate them. There's not a lot of middle ground with either of those guys.
Not at all. They also both have this unwavering belief in themselves, even when, like, everyone else is doubting them.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're both willing to break the rules, challenge the status quo, even if it means burning everything down in the process.
It's like they're operating on a different set of rules
Yeah.
than the rest of us.
And that's what makes them so fascinating to study.
Yeah.
They challenge our preconceived notions of leadership, of success, of what's possible.
So what can we learn from these larger-than-life figures? What are the takeaways from digging into their stories?
Well, for one thing, it shows us that the old rules of success are changing. We're living in an era of disruption, where innovation is happening at an unprecedented pace. It's no longer enough to just play by the rules. You have to be willing to challenge the status quo, to take risks, think outside the box.
Like they're both playing this high-stakes game, betting on themselves and their vision of the future.
But their stories are also a cautionary tale.
Okay.
Both Musk and Trump have shown us that unchecked ambition can have consequences.
Yeah.
It can lead to impulsiveness, recklessness, disregard for the well-being of others.
Power can be a dangerous thing, especially when it's wielded by someone who believes they're always right.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to be aware of these dynamics, to question those narratives, and to think critically about the information we're consuming.
So as we wrap up this first episode of Podcast Infinity,
Our first one.
we want to leave you with this.
Huh?
What's your take on Elon Musk?
Yeah, what do you think?
Is he a genius, a mad king, or somewhere in between? Let us know in the comments.
Do you want to hear from you?
And remember, this is just the beginning. We've got a lot more brain-boosting content coming your way.
Oh yeah, so much more to explore.
So make sure you subscribe and stay tuned.
Keep those brains hungry for knowledge.
This is Podcast Infinity signing off.